to Down Your Unders. Down Your Unders. Review and dissection of content from some of the sharpest minds in the game. Hosted by Adam Camilleri. Art of War. Down Under.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this episode 161 of the Art of War Down Under podcast. My name, as always, is Adam Camilleri. I am joined by the artist formerly known as Skari the Archon, now to be known and hailed as a high overlord of the Greater Toronto sphere.
I'll have you know that I'm just now known as the Overlord. I've been slumbering for millennia, and I have awoken. And I guess that works for both factions?
It kind of does. Yeah, it kind of does. Yep. Drawing power from pain whilst in his meadow exoskeleton, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, there is no pain. It's just all Windows 95, which can be pain.
That is pain. I think you just described a great amount of power from pain right there, for those of us who remember those days. But yes, Mr. Ridvan Martinez, Skari from Scarred Cast and various other means and medias has joined us for this Drukhari Index review. We're going back to it. Took a week off to do the Polish WTC journey breakdown and just a bit of a recap of the greatest, most bestest event of all time.
Yep.
But now we're back to pumping out the reviews, and we should be. I mean, the grapevine and the rumor mill is churning, saying that we could have codexes dropping pretty soon. So hopefully we'll have the first of those coming sooner rather than later. But we've still got plenty of friggin' indexes to do, mate. So thank you very much for coming on and helping me do another. Feel free to tell people where they can find the Skari goodness if they do enjoy your dulcet tones at the end of this.
Absolutely. Well, they'll have to be here at the end. And if they're at the end still listening, then maybe they'll be appreciative of where to find me in future episodes or for future things. So you can go to the last few minutes of this game battle report thing. I'm just kidding. No plugs yet. Let's talk index.
Nice.
Because honestly, we're in a position where it's the World Team Championships has happened. You know, the game's been out for 10 weeks or so.
Yep.
And we live in perilous times.
We really do.
Where the best Dark Eldar player in the world took Necrons to the World Championship. So that'll tell you something about, the faction itself. Now, it's not all bleak, so stick around because we've got 2 episodes of just breaking stuff down, and this time there won't be any chain swords, I promise.
Lovely that you're hearkening back to some of your hot takes from the early 9th edition meta. Dude.
Yeah, you just need more chain swords. That's just how that works.
That is a hell of a callback. That is a 3-year-old callback right there. I appreciate your hustle, buddy, from the content creator perspective.
Innes pulled it out on their stat check podcast. He's like, oh, you just bring more chain swords. You'll be fine.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
I love that it's still a thing.
We are both Black Templars players, and I can absolutely tell you that all they need to do is bring more chain swords.
Yes.
20
autocannons and chain swords. That's all you need.
Dude, 20 Primaris Crusaders putting out 100 chainsword attacks. Turns out, bit of lethal hits. You can just go the distance in a lot of ways.
They're so good.
They are so good.
They're so good.
That is another review. Maybe we'll have you on for the Templars review as well, mate, because that'll be a bit of a bonding experience for us.
I'll recite my vows on it.
Me too. But enough of this foreplay. Actually, a little bit more foreplay. I do like my foreplay. Art of War Down Under is a 2-part podcast. First part coming out leveling for you guys Tuesday morning Eastern Standard Time about 5 a.m. Thankfully edited by the lovely Seamus Ronan. Thank you very much, mate. He just celebrated his birthday. Say happy birthday in the comments to Seamus, please, very much. He's been a great assistant and great help to me in all my endeavors and many others, especially all of the Art of War content creators and podcasts. He has curated all of them from freaking day one. So he's an absolute champion of what we do here. But if you want the second part of this, which is going to be me and Skari answering a bunch of patron questions in addition to pontificating upon the Tactica and the best things going for Drukhari at the moment in 10th edition. You can find that over at Art of War Down Under over on Patreon. Hope to see you there. Let us do this, my man. All right, first time you cracked and read through the Drukhari Index when you first got it in your hot little hands. What was your impression?
I felt they had one of the best faction rules.
I agree.
In the game right now. Power from pain and pain tokens is a very powerful mechanic. Being able to pick and choose rerolls for hitting and shooting or combat. For anybody who doesn't know, you get a pool of, quote, pain tokens that you get to spend on your units. And if you use it in the movement phase, you get a reroll advance roll. If you use it in the shooting or fight phase, you just get reroll hit rolls. And if you use it in the charge phase, you get a reroll to a charge roll. So that was quite powerful. Not as powerful as picking a dice roll, like fate dice, for example. However, it changes the math in a game where like doing damage and sort of trading has become even more important and sort of like iconic of what 10th edition is. Like it's more like chess where everything is just so wildly like crazy that you trade pieces almost guaranteed, almost, right? It just really helps with that.
Agreed. So in saying that, we might as well break down Power from Pain a little bit while we're going through it. So you generate a number of, and this Power from Pain is what I think of as one of the better or best, and I call these the internal resource mechanics that some armies get, Miracle Dice, Fate Dice, Grudge tokens, etc. These internal, everyone has, I guess, other resource mechanics like command points that we all universally get in the game, and then factions have their kind of own. Pain tokens is what you get from being Drukhari, and you generate a number at the start of each battle round, depending on how big your army is. Drukhari.
Yeah, so it's Strike Force gives you 3, so at 2,000 points you get 3 to start.
Yeah, apologies. It's the start of the battle. You generate them, and then you have to generate the rest of them by destroying units or battle shocking units, correct?
Correct. So you get an additional pain token every time an enemy unit is destroyed, and you get a pain token every time an enemy unit fails a battle shock test. Now, you also, with the detachment rule, which get additional pain tokens based on having the different characters that are representative of, say, a Dark Eldar real space raid, so a Homunculus, a Succubus, and an Archon. So you could start the game with up to 6 pain tokens.
Yep.
And then generate them, recycle them. We'll go through it, but you recycle. There are mechanics involved that allow you to be more efficient with them, to get more, and essentially using them effectively and generating more of them becomes like an integral part of the strategy of the game, of the faction, in order to kind of maximize what you can do with it.
So, and then at the start of any phase, you can expend 1 or more pain tokens from your pain token pool, and each time you do, you get to either, if it's in the movement phase or charge phase, you can reroll advance and charge rolls for that unit, advance or charge rolls rather, and then if it's shooting or fighting, you can reroll the hit roll in either of those phases. Now, we both agree this is one of the best army rules in the freaking game at the moment. I think only Fate Dice blows this out of the water. There are a couple that are just as good or a little bit worse. But to me, this is actually a little bit too much. There is
early on, before, like when it was like early index and I was running like 35 Dark Lances or something, like it became very oppressive for people to play against.
Well,
because it just made them crazy efficient, right? And it just felt very, and this was of course before like a lot of the terrain changes happened, where we started seeing more large line of sight blocking areas. And so 15, Scourge and a bunch of like Ravagers would just never miss, right? Because they would just re-rolling everything and you were just picking up entire armies.
Well, that's exactly what it's felt like. So I've played against Drukhari 3 times now, and it just felt like their army just had rerolls to hit. The whole army, anytime something of significance was shooting, something of relevance, like something more than like 5 mandrakes or 5 witches with pistols, anything more than that just had rerolls to hit. It's almost like army-wide all the time, never not going to have it. Because I think even the most basic, like, armies have 3 go straight up to 5 immediately at the start of the game, and then what it's essentially it's a minimum of 2 to 1. Every 2 that you spend, you usually pick up a unit, and that's the worst return that I've seen. I've seen times like a single Ravager shoots a transport, picks it up. That's 1 for 1. That's a pain token expended, a pain token gained. Your resources did not diminish. This is phenomenally strong.
And you add in like the Chronos, for example, right? Which then like lets you regenerate them and things like that, right? So there are ways that it becomes a lot more efficient. Yeah.
It almost sounds like a well-tuned Drukhari army with a good general is just perma rerolls to hit. At least that's how it's felt.
And there's a lot of mechanics. Like, it's very good, you know what I mean? And there's enhancements that you can use, and we'll get to that as we go through the index. But in terms of army rule, re-rolling things is fantastic.
Absolutely.
And being able to use it in any phase, such your opponent's phases as well as yours. And you're only really using that in like the fight phase, really, because you don't really get to re-roll hits in their shooting phase, you know? However, there are times where you want to empower a unit at the start of your opponent's shooting phase, mainly with the Crucible Malediction enhancement. But that comes with like a very specific sort of like tech piece, right? But being able to pick, a unit that's going to go into combat and be like, I don't want to use a command point, because command points in 10th edition are very, very valuable.
Agreed.
Right?
Yeah.
And unless you have a mechanic that gives you like stratagems for free, right?
Yeah.
Every single, it's so like even getting like re-rolls to charge, right? And not having to spend a command point for it and just being able to use a pain token for it can be worth its weight in gold.
Absolutely.
Like, there's times where I put a pain token on a unit and I'm literally like 6 inches away from my opponent for a charge, because I'm like, I just need to make sure that I make that charge, for example.
Yep. Agreed. So my hot takes when I first went through the index, just for my completionist opinion, because it was my show, I thought this was an army that had phenomenal freaking rules. Essentially, the first 4 pages of this book, or is it 5 pages? First 5 pages of this index are almost as good as anybody's. But then the data sheets just aren't quite there. Like the way it plays the game and the strength, the integral strength and abilities on the data sheets don't quite shape up to a few others.
There is a big disparity between, even within the data sheets. Like, there are a few data sheets that are good that you want to take all the time.
Yeah.
That pale in comparison to other ones. But at the same time, they pale in comparison to other ones within the same index.
100%.
Where there's some that that you look at and go, I'm not even going to entertain this because it's not worth my time now.
The internal balance is so out of whack. Like, they're so out of whack. It feels really rough. But like I said, the rules are phenomenal. Let's go into the real space raid. So we already mentioned this in passing, but at the start of the battle, you gain additional 1 pain token for each of the following your army contains: 1 archon, succubus, or homunculus. So if you have all 3, you get 3, and you'll start the game with 6 in a standard 2,000 point army. How big is this? Because this allows you to really front load an alpha strike a lot more judiciously.
Yeah, to be honest, at first I was very much into starting with 6, and having 1 of each and things like that. Now I can get away with just having 4.
I think 4 is fine.
Or 5.
Yeah, 4 or 5 is fine.
I think 4 or 5 is fine. If you're doing 4, then you're probably taking the Art of Pain, which is like an enhancement that gives you an additional one at the start of every command phase. If you're taking 5, you don't need that enhancement as much, because 5 kind of guarantees that your Chronos will kind of pop off early on to give you a few, and then by the time it's like turn 2, you're killing stuff to generate stuff, right?
Exactly.
So it becomes like, it sort of like has a, the better you're doing, the more you're going to get anyway, so you don't really need to front load them too much. And it is, to be honest, it is one of the more boring detachment rules.
It is.
in the indexes. It's very like meh, like it doesn't, there's not really much flavor to this detachment. It's just, you just get your army rules a little better.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
It happens.
Sure.
It's generated at the start of the battle and then has no further part to play in the entire game.
Correct. It's in your army list building, and that's it.
Yep.
And in order to do it, you need to take a succubus, which is probably a model you sadly don't want to take.
Unfortunately,
at least right now.
She may be paying was it 65 points in 9th edition?
It was criminal. We don't even need to.
No, she's at the back of the line and she can take her turn. She can take her turn at the back of the line.
The fact that a single succubus in 9th edition could kill 1,000+ points of your opponent's army without like breaking a sweat was the most criminally undercosted unit. It was so
we
good.
say that, but then in 8th edition we had the Smash Captain, like the captain would jump pack and a Thunderhammer.
Sure,
and I was
it was fun when Dark Eldar had it.
I was fighting with that guy 3 times.
Don't chainsword me, bro.
No.
Okay,
But what I'm saying is, even if it was an offender, it's not like it's an outlier. We have had versions of the succubus before, the blender succubus. It's not like this is the one and only, let's hang her out to dry forever. All right, jumping into the stratagems, first of which is Prey on the Weak, which is 1 CP. Happens in your shooting phase, 1 Cabal unit from your army and 1 enemy unit that is below half strength. Until the end of the phase, each time model unit makes an attack that targets the enemy unit, you can re-roll the wound roll. So just a 1 CP finisher. And in my mind, this is the best used when you want to turn 1 CP into a pain token, because you can spend 1 CP, finish off the unit with this one, and then convert that straight over. Or it's also very useful against things like, I guess, some of the bigger Death Star units that are out there at the moment. I'm thinking Aberrants, Lich Guard, things of that nature.
It is a situational. I would put this in the situational category, but situational good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you want to use it when you need to use it, right? And a lot of the times it ends up being a Ravager shooting at like a knight that has
That's
half
true.
wounds,
Yep.
or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, it's or less than half wounds. It's designed to just make sure you just kill that with the Ravager, that so you can shoot at something else, like to just de-lock the activations that you're going to need to kill that thing. Or if you did a couple of wounds to Magnus, and you're like, okay, now Magnus is under 50. I'm going to reroll wounds against Magnus just to make sure that I get the wounds in, and I'm forcing you to take those saves or whatever, right? So it does come into play. A little less with like Cabalite Warriors, because if you are using them for strats or pain tokens, you're usually either putting them in a Venom, which then doesn't have the Cabalite keyword, so you can't use the strat on a Venom, or they're running in like a larger squad with an Archon to get, and then if you put a pain token on them, they're already getting reroll to wounds because the Archon gives that to the unit, so then it's less impact. So really, you're only using it with like a Ravager. That's like the only time you're really going to use this strat.
That is an interesting take, and yeah, don't disagree. So, I just had to go and check that Scourges weren't Cabals. I was pretty sure they weren't, because they're kind of the mercenary.
No,
kind of thing.
The only thing that has Cabal are Cabalite Warriors, maybe the Court of the Archon, and the Ravager.
So
like, there's very few things. Like, Raiders didn't get Cabal, Venoms didn't get Cabal, the Planes didn't get Cabal. They didn't actually get anything. Not Cabal, not Coven, not Witch Cult, right? So
Court of the Archon is Cabal, by the way, if that matters.
Yeah. Well, normally they're with an Archon, so they'll get reroll wounds with a pain token anyway. So it's like, sure.
All right, what's the next stratagem, mate?
Do not have it open.
Easy.
Hold on.
You slacker.
Yeah,
he was just gonna go off the cuff, and he was probably gonna be like.
I was literally waiting for you to read all of these, I would give you my thoughts.
I will. That works. Strike and Fade is up next for 2 CP.
Okay. Perfect.
End of your shooting phase. 1 Drukhari unit from your army, excluding aircraft, immediately next normal move. End of the turn.
Well, I can tell you exactly what it does once you tell me, and I will tell you. I will even tell you the italics. I just didn't know what order they were.
It's fine. I'll be reading them out, mate, because it's the opinions that matters. To the end of the turn, you're just not eligible to declare a charge and cannot embark within a transport, of course.
So, Strike and Fade, 2 CP to move again. This stratagem, for anybody who was big into Dark Eldar 9th edition, has changed. It is no longer a 7-inch move.
Yeah.
It is a full move. And the unit that is using it doesn't have to have shot at all. It's just pick a unit at the end of the shooting phase, and they just get to move again. That means they don't have to be eligible to shoot. They can do it after coming in from Deep Strike. They can fall back and do it. There's so many. This is probably the best stratagem out of the 6, in my opinion, because this is a game-winning stratagem.
It's a bread and butter.
Yes. Like, the application of the stratagem involve, moving and advancing a unit, starting an action, and by action I mean, I think we still call them actions, even though they're not technically called actions, but starting an action and then using the stratagem to get the unit into range of where they need to be to complete the action at the end of the turn. Because you don't need to be in range of the things where you need to do the actions to start the action. You need to finish the turn, or the trigger is when the action is completed. They just have to be in range. So this stratagem is just a money
It's
maker.
absolutely
I love
baller.
this strategy.
I think it's incredible. The T's and C's on this have only gotten better from last edition as well, like you said. All right, next up, Acrobatic Display, or 1 CP. When your charge phase, one witch cult unit from your army, which is the target, and the effect until the end of the phase, your unit is eligible to declare a charge even if it fell back or advanced this turn. This is a great strat with the exception of the units that you use it on, because I think when we talk about the data sheets that just kind of aren't there, a lot of those are, unfortunately, I think, the witch cult data sheets. What are your thoughts, mate?
Yes, I wish it was good. Like, it's great. I wish it was at the Eldari one, which is just you pick any unit
Yep.
to fall back, shoot, and
Yep.
charge. Like, that would just be better. But okay, sure, if you're taking witches, they can fall back and charge. Yay. Reaver jet bikes, they can advance and charge. Yay. You know what I mean? Like, it's okay, but it's not like you're going to be spending CP elsewhere. You're going to save your CP for a strike and fade and not
100%.
really use it on this.
100%.
Yeah, you're not even going to take this in your army to use it. So let's put it down in the I can't wait till they give me a reason to use this stratagem.
Greatly worded. I appreciate that. Next up is Alliance of Agony. This is 1 CP. It happens at the start of any phase. The target is 1 Archon, 1 Succubus, and 1 Homunculus from your army, so that means you have to have all 3. Discard 1 Pake token from your army token pool until the end of the phase. All 3 of those models' units are empowered, so you discard 1, but then all 3 of those models' units get the effect of the Power from Pain. And then restriction is you can only use this stratagem if you are able to select all 3 of the targets, like I said already. The T's and C's on this are terrible. The effect is pretty cool.
This goes hand in hand with our detachment rule is kind of meh. You know what I mean? Like, if you play to the detachment rule, you get to use this stratagem, but most of the time I don't take all 3 of the characters if I'm going to a serious event, because I don't feel like you need to make I don't want to have to spend 300 points in characters to make my army work. So I did use it when I was building lists at the beginning and testing things out or whatever. And when you have it, it's fine. You know what I mean? Sure. But it's on a go turn. Like, you have to literally go, okay, Archon, Succubus, and Homunculus are all charging into combat, and I'm doing it all in one go right now, and spending, and then absolutely. But until then, because I don't take 3 of a kind of the characters, I rarely use this stratagem.
Totally fair. That's This might be a couple of times during this index things will line up for you to pop this and make it actually feel good. But
if you're playing with your friends at game night and you're taking one of each, absolutely. You know what I mean? I've got Lilith and a Homunculus and an Archon, and they're all gonna charge in or whatever. Sure, go be my guest, have fun with it. But it's one of those things where you probably are not going to use this strategy.
There. All right, next up, Quicksilver Reactions, 1 CP. When your opponent's shooting phase or the fight phase, just after an enemy unit has selected its targets, the target is 1 Drukhari unit from your army that was selected as the target of one or more of those attacking units' attacks until the end of the phase. Each time attack targets that unit, subtract 1 from the hit roll. You cannot target a Homunculus Coven's unit from your army with this stratagem because they're big and clumsy and misshapen and poorly wrought.
Absolutely. Yeah. This one's a -1 to hit for a CP is not bad.
It's nice.
You just have to... The timing is important. Just know that timing is important with the stratagem. You can use it in shooting and in combat, but the addition is so killy, and there's so many ways to get rerolls and modify dice rolls right now that its impact is less than it was in the past. However, it can, in a pinch, get you out of a pickle.
And you have access to this in addition to the go to ground one, yeah? The main rule book.
Yep.
So that's not too bad.
Yeah, which, it's not terrible. If you absolutely need to try and keep yourself alive, sure. But most of our stuff already has an impulse save anyway, so you don't really need go to ground. You know what I mean? It's sure.
All right, the last one, Insensible to Pain, 1 CP. Use it in your opponent's shooting phase or the fight phase just after your enemy has selected its target. So it's another reactive one, similar to Quicksilver Reactions. This one is for Homunculus Coven's units only that was selected as a target of attacks, and you get -1 to wound. This seems good.
It is good. This one is very good. Sadly, the Coven units are not exactly the front of the page, like the old 9th edition book was, with all the Talos and grotesques and stuff.
I still think they're okay. I think Talos
They are okay.
are pretty tolerable
Yep.
for what they bring. And
they're one of those units that's okay. And this does make them tougher, right? I use it mainly on my racks and things like that, because it changes the math enough that your opponent has to like -1 to wound plus a 4-up feel no pain.
Yeah.
Like they tends to force them to put more things into a unit that they thought they were going to kill easily. And so I definitely do keep this on my back pocket. I use this one often.
Yeah, I think it's really good. And once again, though, like I has it like you said, has an asterisk over it. Same with Acrobatic Display, just because like you need a unit that's worth using CP on. And I'm not sure how many of them there are. Like you said, especially in the Witch Cult, I'm not sure there's any of them that are worth spending CP on. And Homunculus Covenants, I do believe there are a couple of little gems in there. All right, over to the enhancements. So first up is Crucible of Malediction, homunculus model only. Once per battle at the start of any shooting phase, the bearer can use this enhancement. When it does, every enemy unit within 12 must take a battle shock test, subtracting 1 from that test if the bearer's unit is currently empowered, so if you've spent a pain token on them. Each time a psychic unit fails this test, it suffers D3 mortal wounds. So, against T-Suns, that feels pretty good if you can get 2 or 3 units in range. And of course, if you're going to be doing this in the shooting phase, you're going to be slapping down that pain token, right?
Yeah, so this was the enhancement that I disregarded the first time I read the index. It didn't really seem like a big deal. But the more I've been playing, this has become my favorite from all of them.
Nice. Well, so I thought this was going to be middling, and maybe if you can stack another neg 1 somewhere, this would become really good.
Well, the homunculus himself has a neg 1.
Hey! You're picking up
within
my breadcrumbs.
6 inches of the homunculus.
You're picking up my breadcrumbs, yes. Buddy. I appreciate it. Yeah, so keep going.
Yeah, so the homunculus himself has Fear Incarnate, so 6 inches within 6 inches of the homunculus, the enemies are at -1 to battle shock tests, and then if they're empowered when they do this, it's an additional -1. So it's -2 to battle shock tests if you're within 6 inches of this homunculus. Now, I will say right now, it's at the start of any shooting phase that it goes off, so you can do it in your opponent's shooting phase as well. And don't forget, you can empower your unit right before you make it happen, which is really cool. And it has been game-winning for me in 2 ways. Number 1, it gives you like a healthy dose of pain tokens mid-game if you need like a injection of pain to like get an alpha strike or beta strike in later in the game if you like haven't really been able to kill stuff. But more importantly, things that are bravery 6 go to bravery 8, which means they actually have a likelihood chance of failing that battle shock
Dude,
test
absolutely.
on 2 dice. And it can be like I went to when I played at the tournament this past weekend as a GT, one of my favorite uses was to run it up to a unit of Lich Guard or put him in between the 2 blocks of Lich Guard and pop it. And then whichever one failed it, I'd send my Solitaire into to snipe the characters while they couldn't use stratagems to resurrect them.
Couldn't resurrect or can't interrupt as well if it's a bit of a go turn.
Correct. Can't interrupt, can't resurrect. Now, it also works very well against like Custodes because they can't make themselves fight first. You know what I mean? So you can actually go in and do some damage before they hit you back. So I have found this little like hidden away enhancement to be like, yes, you have to see the rolls or whatever, but you'd be surprised. Like I played against Tau and I was like, oh, you've got 6 units within 12 and like 4 out of the 6 unit fail battle shock test. And this was in my opponent's turn, which then meant they weren't able to get their secondaries by hopping onto objectives, right? And then in my turn, they rolled battle shocked, so I knew they couldn't use stratagems. right? And then I was able to pick my targets. So I really like this enhancement. It is very cool.
I think it's very cheeky. I like it a lot. All right, Labyrinthine Cunning is up next. Archon model only. Each time you select the bearer's unit as a target of a stratagem, roll a 1d6, adding 3 to the result if the stratagem being rolled for is the Alliance of Agony, which is the one that requires the succubus and the homunculus as well. So you auto get your CP back if you have those other two with you, which we've already said is not going to be that often. But on a 4+, you get a CP. So every time the bearer's unit is selected, regardless of what stratagem it is, you get your CP back on a 4+. Is this any good?
The thing is, it has to be the Archon's unit.
Correct.
That makes it, not good for me, in my opinion. Because a lot of the times the Archon's just going to hide in a corner and wait till he uses Vect ability, and he's not doing anything else. Because if he's a part of a unit that's in the middle of the game, he's going to just die to a Wraith Knight or something.
Correct.
Like, he's just instantly
literally
dead.
anything.
They don't survive. If anything, you're giving him the Art of Pain, which we'll get to because you're hiding him far away in a corner. And at the end of the day, if you're playing tactical cards, which is a very strong way of playing Dark Eldar, most of the time you can just discard a card for a CP anyways. You don't even need a roll or to pay points for this.
These abilities have gone down in stock quite a lot, I believe. Especially seeing...
Like if it was a use a stratagem for 0 CP, they would be worth its weight in gold. I would take that every time.
That's what I was about to say. That's the new version of the ability that we've been used to. The one that makes it usable for free or usable twice. The stratagem can be used again in the same phase. Anyway, next up is Blood Dancer, Succubus model only. Improve the attack and AP characteristic of the bearer's melee weapons by 1, and whilst the bearer is empowered, improve them by 2. This sounds pretty good. But you're still not going to do it. But tell us why, mate.
Well, you have to put it on the Succubus, number one. And secondly, for 15 more points, you get Lilith, which is just better.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, Lilith is just... If you're going to take a Succubus, just take Lilith Hesperex. She is...
amazing.
Good. For what she does, she's very good. However, but this is just like the poor man's version of Lilith. So I don't think you need to do that. You just take Lilith instead, to be honest.
If for some reason you wanted a Lilith and a Lilith Light, Lilith from Wish.com, guess you could have both, but I don't really see the reason.
There is play. Once when the meta shifts as time goes by, maybe there is play of like buying 10 witches, splitting them into 2 squads of 5 with a Venom, and then having 1 5 with Lilith and 1 5 with a souped up Blood Dancer Succubus. Maybe there'll be a point in time where that becomes a thing, right? But as of now, it's cool in fun games, but you're probably not going to take it in a tournament.
Agreed. All right, the Art of Pain is the last one, and I think this is the best one, apart from maybe the Crucible, depending if you can line up. But this is the only one that gives you value turn after turn, regardless of what the user is doing. So it is Drukhari model only, so it's any character. In your command phase, if the bearer is on the battlefield, you gain a pain token. I was about to say CP. That would be even better. But you gain a pain token. This is very good.
Yep, it's excellent. It gives you 5 pain tokens in the game, right? So, a lot of the times you can start with 5 pain tokens, Homunculus, Archon, and then the Strike Force, and then that gives you 10 pain tokens. The more I used it, because of my experience level, I found I didn't need it.
Yep.
Because I was able to make pain tokens.
Sequence your shooting, your activations enough.
Correct.
Yep.
However, for like somebody who's learning Dark Eldar or just wants to get the most of it, and it can go on any character,
correct,
right? So it doesn't matter if it's a homunculus that you're hiding in the back or the Archon or even a Beastmaster. Like, you can literally give it to any of the characters in the book, and then you just get a pain token every turn.
We have been somewhat remiss, as we have not been telling you how many points these things cost. The Crucible is only 10 points, which is why it's kind of my favorite, because it is cheap as chips. Blood Dancer will run you 20 points. That's for the Succubus enhancement. The Archon enhancement, Labyrinthine Cunning, is 30 points, which shows you how G-Dub has valued that one that we didn't think was very good. And then the Art of Pain, the best one, we think is 25. But Crucible Malediction for 10 points, just to add that spice, I like very much.
I like it A lot. If you get the 10 points to put that onto a homunculus, like you do have to take a homunculus, and if you're taking a homunculus, then you're taking racks. You know what I mean? So the investment is enhancement, homunculus,
Correct.
racks. So you are putting a bit of points in
Yeah.
there.
It definitely snowballs.
But I think it's worth it.
And that brings us to the end of the rules portion of this review. And so far there's a lot to like here. But now it's about to go downhill a little bit as we start talking about some of the data sheets. But there are some very good ones in here. One of the great things about Drukhari is that there are a lot of data sheets. So you really can pick and choose where you go. It's almost, like the 8th and 9th edition Drukhari codexes both felt like 3 supplements wearing a trench coat, didn't they?
Yeah, it was 3 different armies. Yeah, and but they captured the essence of the Dark Eldar so well in the 9th edition codex.
They really did.
Like it was just very well designed.
We mean internally, right? Externally, it was absolutely dumb.
Look, it was silly.
It really was.
You didn't bring enough chain swords, you lose. That's just how that works. But no, especially towards the end of the edition, it was like in a really good spot where you could if you played it well, you reaped the dividends. Like it was really good, but it wasn't easy to pilot.
All right, so jumping into the data sheets, usually I'll be leaning on my expert here to take us through some of the notable data sheets that the budding Archon out there might need to know about. We're going to start with a couple of the HQs, mate. Which are your go-tos?
My go-tos? Well, the Archon and the Homunculus for sure.
Easy done. All right.
They're the 2 main ones. The Archon, you kind of want to make him your Warlord to get access to his Devious Mastermind ability, which is essentially what we call colloquially as Vect, right? Which is pick an enemy stratagem, and that stratagem costs 1, when they use it, that stratagem costs an extra command point for the rest of the game. Very powerful to have.
Extremely good. He runs you 85 points and still comes with the Shadow Field, so a 2+ invulnerable save until you fail it. And sometimes that means this guy is absolutely invincible, and sometimes that means someone shoots a bolt pistol at him, he fails it, and then the very next gun kills him. So in combat...
Note to self, if somebody shoots you with a bolt pistol, don't take it on the Shadow Field. Okay? Take it on his armor save. And then don't really start using the Shadow Field until he has 1 wound left, and then you can start rolling to us.
Correct. That is the Archon's way of things. In combat, still runs you pretty good. Hustblade is anti-infantry 3+ with 5 attacks hitting on 2s at strength 3. Doesn't matter. You should only be fighting infantry. -2, 2 damage. Pretty respectable for 85 points. 4 wounds, toughness 3, moves 8, nice and quick. 1 OC. Apart from that, pretty unremarkable, except for, like you said, giving it Vect, giving it the extra pain token per turn means it generates you a lot of value while kind of holding down a backfield.
Yeah, you can just keep him in the back, and he can kind of countercharge something if he needs to. He works really nicely with the, especially into infantry characters. He is dangerous with the amount of attacks and damage and decent AP he does. And I believe if he's leading a unit, he can give them reroll wound rolls of 1, right?
Yep.
And if they're pain token, they get reroll all wound rolls.
Pretty nice, man.
Which then so that's not bad. Reroll hits, reroll wounds. Little expensive. We'll get to the court of the Archon, but a court with Cabalites with him, with all the buffs they get, actually they're not terrible. They're just a bunch of points.
We'll get to Cabalites in a minute because I'm actually a big fan of Cabalites. I think Cabalites are one of the better battle line units in the game. When just about everyone else's battle line is pretty trash and never heard of and never taken, I think Cabalites are pretty good. But you mentioned the Homunculus. So toughness 4, 5 wounds, move 7, 1 OC, Stinger Pistol, pretty forgettable weapon, 1 shot at anti-infantry 2+, so literally don't ever shoot at anything else, -1 D3 damage. In combat, it's got 5 attacks at anti-infantry 2+ as well with precision, quite nice. Strength 3, -1 D3, comes with Feel No Pain 5+ while leading a unit. That unit has a 4+ Feel No Pain, and then one enemy within 6, we already said this, they are -1 from their battle shock. Only has a 6-up vulnerable save, but does have to Feel No Pain, and can only join racks. Give us the story here, dude.
So he's a nice secondary character. I do like him mainly because he has precision attacks in close combat. And I think that's just something that's very, very useful. And his Feel No Pain, he just makes racks better Feel No Pain. He's one of the only things that has Feel No Pain in the Dark Eldar book, which is good against mortal wounds. And he's like the chunkiest character that we have. He's 5 wounds, you know what I mean? 5 wounds, and all in all, he's been more reliable than a succubus, more reliable than an archon in pretty much every case.
Fantastic. Where do you want to go from here from the HQs? You want to start reeling off some data sheets that you rate?
Yeah, we could definitely do that. Like, honorable mention, look, if you want to run witches, Lilith is the way to go. If you want to run incubi, because they are cool, and you might have like this legacy of wanting to relive what they could do in 9th. Note to self, they do not do what they did in 9th. Okay, they've fallen from grace. But if you do, then Drazar actually makes them be able to kill some things. So
yeah.
So I wouldn't leave home without Drazar if you're taking incubi.
I do agree with that though. Incubi was kind of the best models in the freaking game, but
they look so cool
rules...
too. I want to take them all the time, and I don't understand why an archon cannot join incubi.
Dude, that okay? I do not get. I really do not get that. That's
like I would take an incubi with an archon to give him reroll wound rolls, right? If he could lead incubi and get reroll wounds, like that would actually be okay. But no, he can't join his like faithful mercenary bodyguards. How I don't understand. Like I don't get it sometimes.
I think it's hilarious and kind of sad. All right, where are we going from the HQ slot? Can we talk about Cabalites? Let's talk about Cabalites.
Yeah, well, Battle Line is the way to go, right? I guess there's not really any HQ or elites or things anymore. It's more like Battle Line, non-Battle Line.
Correct. So Movement 8, Toughness 3, 4-up save, OC 2, what you'd expect. Come with a variable deluge of different weapons that they can take. Can be given the grenades keyword if they take the Phantasm. Their special rule is if you control an objective marker at the end of your command phase and this unit or any transport is embarked within it is in range of that objective marker, it remains under your control. So they get to sticky, which is nice. They no longer go to 20 models in the unit. They are capped at 10, which I think we saw.
No more and no less.
Yeah, it can only get 10. It's funny we saw that diversion halfway through 9th edition. Do you remember, like, the first 3 quarters of 9th edition, every single book came out with the ability to have 20 model units? Even Sisters. Like Sisters, Necrons, freaking everything came out with the ability to have 20 models in a unit. And then they, like, took a hard right turn at the Demons Codex, who should have 20 model units, just as much or more than everybody else. And now the vast majority are stuck at 10 mans again, or 10 models again. Tell us about Cabalites. Why do you rate them, and why do I also rate them?
Oh, Cabalites are great. Number 1, you get all of the weapons, anti-tank, anti-infantry, right? So they have like a little bit of everything. Number 2, they have access to the grenade keyword, which is like, we don't really have stratagems that do a lot of stuff. Like, we have a move again stratagem, and like, that's about it, you know? And then, so using grenades is a great way to do damage and tank shock, like especially against some tougher targets. And then the sticky objectives is phenomenal. Like being able to be in a Venom or a Raider, sticky an objective, and then just move away from it.
So good.
It really helps with some survivability, because you can still screen the table without having to be on an objective unless you're playing into like Gene Steel Cults or whatever. But it also allows you to be like, oh, I'm playing against 1,000 Suns. I don't need to be on any objectives, which means you don't get your reroll wound rolls. You know, things like that that can really kind of help your survivability, for example. And it allows you to sort of like sticky an objective in an area of the table and move away from it and not have to like babysit the objective with stuff. Now, something that's key to note, the sticky objective rule, the objectives don't change hands until the end or the beginning of a turn. So they don't flip mid-phase, right?
Because it used to be
or mid-turn.
It used to be at the end of any phase, or was it start of any phase? And now it is only at the top of turns.
Correct, for sticky objectives, which also comes in play with things like Custodes, right? Because like a Guardian unit can't hold the objective to get reroll wound rolls.
That's true.
So there's like some really cool synergistic stuff in terms of the game that works really well with it. But really, they just have any weapon you need at any time. They're decently priced. They could go down a little bit, I guess, but they're still like, they're good. And they've got a Dark Lance, a Blaster. Like, they've got all the guns you need for like any situation. and then you can split them with venoms. So they synergize really well with venoms more than raiders, in my opinion, because you still want to try get that MSU feel. So splitting them up and sending them all over the place to do actions, because splinter rifles are assault weapons.
Correct.
So you can actually like advance and do these actions and, advance them and get them in a position to shoot stuff, and they're really decent at the infantry still. Like, they are an all-rounder. They're exactly what you want for like a troop unit.
I like them a lot. The splitting and the venom thing is just a little ace in the hole, because you get to split them and have just nobody's going in the venom that's going to go out of the midboard objectives turn one.
No, you put all the guns in the venom, buddy.
That's what I mean.
You put all the nobodies on the put all the nobodies.
I said it the wrong way around.
Correct.
You get a venom that has just it actually becomes a gunboat. It actually resembles a baby Ravager more than it does, anything else. And it just buzzes around and is an absolute pain.
And then firing deck,
correct.
One pain token empowers everything, and it can deal with anti-infantry, anti-tank. Like venoms are fantastic for it. It's great.
All right, next starter sheet, mate. You can go anywhere you like from here.
So racks are okay. I wouldn't really use too many of them. Like, there is a point to be made of like taking 6 units of racks and then just like doing like a mortal wound infantry spam or like a sniper rifle spam thing. Like, that is something that you could do. However, I like having 1 or 2 units mainly to feed to the enemy if I'm running out of pain tokens. Just to be like, I'm going to need a pain token because I need to try and get reroll hit rolls next turn, so I need you to kill this
That is
unit. So
Drukhari AF, what you just said. That is so funny.
Yeah. Or to babysit the homunculus. So I tend to take at least one of them. However, their weapons are very...
medium.
They don't really make an impact.
They don't do anything. They literally don't do anything.
So, they don't. The data sheet I would like to focus on is the Kronos. The Kronos is a floating monster, but why don't we go through its stats real quick?
Easy done. Just let me run to it, because unlike other codexes, this guy is in alphabetical order. It's so funny that they did some in alphabetical order and some not. And so, it's frustrating. All right, movement 7, toughness 7, 3-up save with 7 wounds, OC 2. Comes with a Spirit Siphon. Which is an Ignores Cover Torrent, strength 5, -1 damage, auto hit it for D6, and also a Spirit Vortex, which you can replace it with for 18-inch range at Blast, D6, Ignores Cover, hitting on 3s at 5/1/1 also. And then in combat, it's got 4 attacks, hitting on 4s at strength 5, no rend 1 damage. So it is not here to do damage. It can do a little bit.
Nope.
It can do a little bit of damage.
It doesn't do anything. It has the same resilience as a Talus.
Yep, feel no pain 5+, and the aura is what you want it for. Each time a pain token is removed from your pain token pool to empower a unit, if that empowered unit is within 9 of this model, roll a d6 on a 4+, you get that one back. Very good. Very good.
So good. This is, because it happens as soon as you remove the paint token, it's like, you don't have to use all your paint tokens and roll. You can literally do them one at a time.
Yep. Correct.
And
correct.
The Kronos becomes such an integral part of the synergy within the army's damage output that you can have 1 pain token empower 6 shooting units or 7 shooting units or whatever it is. And it is incredibly useful. Like, keep your Kronos alive as much as possible. The Kronos is going to be hanging around where your Ravagers and your Scourge are, and your Venoms are going to be, like, with all the gunboat stuff, like, early on, to really kind of maximize on the damage output, so you can spend pain tokens liberally at the beginning of the game and hopefully get them refunded. And I think it is just, I used to take 2. I think 2 is good if you're starting off and you feel like you're going to have to spread out. However, the more experience you get, I think you only really need 1, and then you can use points elsewhere. But all in all, the Kronos is a go-to. I would not make a list without a Kronos right now.
100%. I think one of them is absolutely mandatory. And like you said, go to 2 if you want. If you want the double down, if you want the security, go to a second. Where are we going from here, mate? Give us at least 3 more data sheets. Ravagers.
Well, that was the one I was going to go next. Yeah, because I don't think you can make, I think Ravagers and Scourge are the next ones. Just like hands down.
Well, for me,
let's just go into a data sheet that went from hero to 0 to hero again. Okay. Because they used to be babysat by an archon. An archon would sit around a ravager and give it reroll once to hit, reroll once to wound, right? That's just how that used to be. And they used to be disintegrator cannons. And now they've gone to dark lances, and they're sub 100 points.
They're so
for
good.
3 dark lances.
So good.
They're so good for what you get. They're just incredibly good. They still die.
Yeah.
Very
well,
fast,
but I'd like to.
But they're just.
Now that you say that, I would like to say that they have been one of the biggest beneficiaries of the increase in durability to vehicles, because I used to kill these things with bolt guns. Legitimately, I would just kill them with bolt guns or just a couple of melters, like 2 melter shots with 4 rerolls to hit and reroll 1s to wound. A lot of the time could just pop a freaking Ravager. But going to toughness 9 means that a lot of the melter out there just isn't a factor. Melter and plasma, just without rerolls to wound, isn't that reliable at killing them. And I feel like, whilst, las cannons are better, and there are other things that did get better at killing them again, with rerolls and stuff, I think they benefited a lot more than some other units did. Like I think they benefited more from the toughness increase than Knights did. Knights are still susceptible to the same kind of stuff, because it was always rerolls that was the thing that killed Knights more than anything else. But like Ravagers, they always sat at that point where they were pretty forgettable, pretty easy to kill if you can get into them. And now at toughness 9 with 11 wounds, they kind of get a little awkward for some armies.
Yep, you need to shoot the bright lances and things into them, right? But flamers and bolters and things like that, absolutely. And it means that they could charge into combat more effectively and not die to just mass attacks and things like that. So I do like their versatility. They're still pretty fast. The changes to fly in general really sucked for Dark Eldar, because you can't really fly over buildings and get ultimate line of sight on everything and pretend the terrain isn't there. You have to go around things and stuff now.
My heart bleeds.
My
heart bleeds for you, mate. Where's my violin? Where is my violin?
I want to be able to ignore most of the rules of the game, please. Okay, I want to just fly up and stage and then table my opponent turn.
Computer
That's just what I want to do.
No.
But let's just say the Ravager's an iconic Drukhari model, and it's really cool that, to all of you that loved Drukhari in 9th edition, they were very cool, but now the army is more faithful to the mechanics of Drukhari and Dark Eldar before in the beginning times. It feels more like a classic Dark Eldar now again.
Yeah, the flotilla is back.
Yeah.
All right.
Exactly.
On to Scourges, which I very much do rate. Movement 14, toughness 3, 4+ save is not very impressive. They will die if they get seen, but they have a great way of not being seen, which is their special rule. Winged strike. In your shooting phase, after this unit has shot, if it is not within engaged range of any enemy units, it can make a normal move up to 6 inches. If it does, until the end of the turn, it's not eligible to declare a charge. So they have inbuilt fire and fade, strike and fade, whatever the hell you want. So they pop out from a wall, shoot, pop back behind the wall. Very susceptible to indirect fire, which I think is one of the biggest downsides here, because any Desolator and his mate will just knock 5 of these guys.
I think Dark Eldar in general do not like out of line of sight fire. That's just a thing.
Because they just do not like being shot. But these guys are very good. Do you like them most with I've seen them with the Haywires or the Lancers most often? What are your preferences?
Dark Lances are my preference, mainly because you can use range to your advantage with a Dark Lance, and you don't have to be anywhere near to the enemy whatsoever. You can be super far away. Also, if you ever run into Desos or Night Spinners, Deep Strike these
100%.
guys. They should not be on the table.
Which is a rule that they do have.
Deep Strike as a
Correct.
rule. Yeah, so you should be able to shoot with them before the enemy gets to shoot you. And they have a 5-up impulse save. So don't forget their invulnerable save is better than your average impulse.
It's nice. Yeah, I do like it.
They also have the grenade keyword as well, which is something people forget.
You can't put these guys in a transport at all, can you?
Nope.
Yep. I figured. It would have been nice.
Yep. Yeah, it would have been cool. You know what I mean? I do like the fact that they can deep strike, shoot, and then use
scoot.
their strike and fade move,
Yep.
which is really good for scoring objectives, like taking away a primary point from your opponent that didn't screen properly, or just dropping down, shooting, and hiding behind a wall, right? And making sure you drop down near your Chronos to get the pain tokens and things like that, right?
Yeah.
They are one of the most versatile units. I think even if you're running them in Inari, for example, like in an Eldar Inari, you can even build them to be really good with like a bunch of splinter cannons and then use like shuriken fire or whatever it's called. What's the name of that stratagem? Anyway, so they can be used in other books too.
Correct.
They are
Yep.
a very versatile data sheets, and they're probably one of the best data sheets we have.
I agree. I have one to take us to, which is my actual favorite unit in this whole book. That's mandrakes. So
I'm glad you brought them up, buddy. I love them.
There is a term that I am coining right here, right now, that I've had knocking about in my head, and it's called card potential. There are units, we used to call them action monkeys in years gone by. But that was when you knew exactly what they needed to do every turn. Every turn they needed to be able to do this objective so this action on this objective, etc., etc. Your secondaries were built. You knew what their purpose was. Now you don't know, because a lot of the time you're going to be ripping cards off the top of your deck. So you need to have card potential units. Units that no matter what you rip off the top, you have the ability to score. And mandrakes, I think, are one of the best versions of that in the freaking game. And I'll tell you why right now. Movement 8. Toughness 3, who gives a stuff about any of that? None of that matters. Their ranged weapon is kind of cute. It's got assault and devastating wounds. 18 inches is quite short, but it is 2 shots at strength 5 and no rend 1 damage. But the devil wounds is what you're doing it for. And in combat, they've got 3 attacks with the same profile, but no devil wounds. They have infiltrators and stealth. That's a great combination of keywords right there. And then they have fade away as their ability. At the end of your opponent's turn, if this unit is not within engagement range, you can remove it from the freaking battlefield and in the reinforcement steps of your next phase, set it up anywhere in the battlefield that's more than 9 inches away. So every single turn, just about, if you have these guys, they should be going back into reserve. You pull your cards, you put them down, you score your cards. And your opponent's next turn, if they're still alive, you put them back in the sky, back into deep strike, pull your cards, put them on the battlefield, score your cards. They are, well, chef's freaking kiss with a 5-up invulnerable save, just because I forgot to mention it, mate. Do you feel the same way?
I take 15 of them in every list right now. At least, 10 to 15, so 2 to 3 squads. They are money. And I find that the longer they stay alive, the more likely I am to win the game.
I am of the opinion that they are the first thing I want to kill of my opponent's army. Because, yeah, sure, Ravagers might be blowing me up, but there's only a handful of cards that Ravagers can pull off the top and get you points for scoring, bring it down, stuff like that. Whereas Mandrakes can score you every single, unless I am on the objective they need to be on, every single other one that requires you to be a place and do a thing, they can pretty much score you. And they are extremely good, man. How many points?
They are very, very good. Points? I love them. They're 70 points for fluff.
Incredible.
So they're, yeah, like they don't, okay, don't get me wrong, they don't hold up like in damage potential to something like Flayed Ones that are the same amount of points.
Yeah, that's fair.
And Flayed Ones will go in and wipe out like 20 neophytes, like Gene called neophytes in a single combat phase, whereas these mandrakes will not do that.
They will not, no.
Yeah, they will not. But they will score you a ton of points. Now, they are really good with Infiltrate. You can put some pressure on your opponent if you need, etc. However, most of the time, I would put them way in the back and hide them and just have them score as many points as possible for the course of the game.
I 100% agree. I think, I love them so much. I think they're great. All right, did you have one more data sheet for us before we wrap this up?
The data sheet that I wanted to bring up is a Reaver jet bike. I think they are a good, fast-moving point scorer that you can use. Give them a heat lance, and so they have assault weapons. They have one of the fastest things we have in the book, and they're one of the best things to use for actions early on in the game and or scoring like cards. Basically, they're another card scorer. They just do it differently than the mandrakes, and they have access to like advance and charge if you need to like tie stuff up or move block things a lot faster than mandrakes can.
Well, so they move 16, toughness 4, 2 wounds, 2 OC. So OC 6 just on a 3 bikers. That's not bad. You can go take some stuff away. They've got enough bits and pieces going on that it's not unusual for 3 of them with a pain token to kill 2 or 3 Space Marines and therefore, take an objective away, stuff like that. And each time they end this move, this is a special rule, you can select one enemy unit, so it's a normal move only, excluding monsters or vehicles that they moved over. If you do, roll a d6 for each model unit on each 4+, they suffer a mortal wound. So, let's say I've got 5 whatever Space Marines, 5 infiltrators on an objective. They're only OC1 anyway, but who cares? So you already take the objective. You're eviscerating flyby, you get 2 4+s out of 3 dice, you kill one, your blaster pops off, you kill another one, you charge in, and with your agonizer and your blade veins, you kill another one. Good job.
Yep.
Good returns. Funnily enough.
Yeah, there's they're okay. They're only 5 points more than a squad of mandrakes. They have a heat lance, they can do mortal wounds in movement, and they're fast. So that is another one that is, if you have some points to add some in, I would try and add 1 or 2 squads in.
I like them. I think they're fine. And on that note, we will wrap this up, man. We just ticked over an hour then, so perfect. Where do you think Drukhari lie in the competitive lexicon? And if you were to rate how happy you are as a Drukhari general with this index, what would you give it out of 10?
So me as a faction expert, I do like a lot of the dynamics in the book. I think that so far I've been able to test a variety of different builds, and I'm still finding fun ways to mix things. I'm going to a tournament tomorrow. I'm taking 4 aircraft.
Love it.
Right? So I'm just trying some wacky stuff. But from the average Archon, I'm a little disappointed that it has such a soft floor, if that makes sense.
It does.
Before, you could probably take Grotesques and Talos and build a bit of a core that would give you a little bit of a cushion into tougher matchups, but it just isn't a thing nowadays. So if you make mistakes, you're just gonna lose, and it's very hard to have something to fall back on that's got that toughness to fall back on when you're things go awry in the middle of a game, which makes it very hard to play. Now, if you have the sort of mental tenacity to brush yourself off and try again, it will reward you greatly, a high skill cap. The better you get with this, the more you will do well with it, right? However, I do feel that it's not easy to pilot, and that can put people off.
I feel like it's extremely unforgiving, phenomenally unforgiving. You will go from feeling like you're playing well to being tabled in a 1 turn versus some of the more powerful armies in the game. And like you said, there is 0 durability on any of the units that are worth taking. The most durable thing you got is a toughness 9, 11 wound Ravager. And as far as tanks go, it's not very tough. It's just better against the small arms fire than it ever has been. I do think there is... see, it's almost like I want to say Drukhari will lose better in some situations than many others versus top armies in the right hands. They've got the scoring potential is still so high, but none of that stuff turns into wins. That still doesn't give you the agency to win in losing matchups. It's quite frustrating in some manner. I put the
I have this is we're playing a beta version of the game as it stands right now. The top armies of the game are playing their own version of the game that it doesn't really involve 80% of the armies.
Yeah, that's true.
So, but when you put Dark Eldar into anything else that isn't the top 4,
they have a game.
It's not bad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They play well into pretty much everything except for Incarn, Wraith Knight, D-Cannon, Night Spinner, Eldar, or Genestealer Cult. But who doesn't? They're just dumb right now. You know what I mean?
Easy done. On that note, mate, we will wrap this up. Thank you so much for your time and your expertise. We're going to go over and record part 2 for your loving and my dutiful patrons. Hopefully you'll join us there to come over to Art of War Down Under Patreon and get that juicy part 2. But it is time for the Scarred one to plug his wares.
Plug my wares. Yeah, well, if you like what I do, best place to find me is on YouTube at Scarredcast. I do YouTube videos and tactical things and tournament reviews. Sometimes I even play Necrons. So check that out there. Of course, the links to all social media are on there. And if you just want to come over, say hi, that'd be awesome.
Fantastic, mate. Thank you so much again for coming on. We will see you over at part 2, hopefully. If not, take care, look after each other, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to Art of War Down Under, a content review podcast for Warhammer 40k, hosted by Adam Camilleri, produced by Seamus Ronan. Enjoyed the show? Want your lists reviewed and the content you heard put into practice? Sign up to our Patreon and connect with us online or on Facebook. Just search for Art of War Down Under. Signing out from tomorrow.